Most of you wake up every day acting like you've got a second life waiting for you. You don't. Time's ticking, and you're sitting there scrolling, complaining, doing nothing. Wake the hell up, get off your ass, and give a shit about your own life, because nobody else will. Most of you walk around like the world is meant to care about your problems. You think the universe is sitting there, concerned about your feelings, worried about your bank account, making sure you're comfortable. It's not. Nobody cares. And once you understand that truth, your life changes. The reason so many people stay broke, stay weak, stay miserable is because deep down they're still hoping someone else will come in and fix it for them. They're waiting for that friend, that family member, that magical opportunity, that lucky break. But I learned a long time ago, no one's coming. When I was broke, living in a tiny apartment with no heating, eating cheap noodles every night because that's all I could afford, I didn't have anyone sending me money. I didn't have some secret mentor swooping in to tell me the way. My phone wasn't ringing with opportunities. Verse did. I was cold, I was hungry, and I was alone. And the hardest part wasn't the hunger or the cold. It was realizing that nobody gave a damn. My friends were out enjoying themselves. My family had their own lives to deal with, and the world kept moving without me. That's when it hit me. If I wanted out, it was on me. No one was going to do it for me. You've got to stop expecting other people to be invested in your success. They won't be success. They won't be. People have their own problems, their own bills, their own struggles. They're not thinking about you when they go to bed. They're not lying awake, wondering how to help you. They're thinking about themselves. And you know what? That's fair, because you should be thinking about yourself too. When I started my first business, I didn't tell anyone at first. Not because I was hiding it, but because I knew no one would care until it worked. And that's how life is. People don't cheer for potential. They cheer for results. The world will ignore you when you're climbing, but pretend they always believed in you once you reach the top. I've seen it happen over and over. Back when I was fighting professionally, I'd be in the gym for hours every day. My hands would be bleeding, my ribs bruised, my body aching. I'd push through exhaustion until my vision blurred. And while I was in there, sweating blood, the world outside just kept going. No one came into that gym to say, "Hey man, you're working hard. I'm proud of you." No. I didn't hear anything. But the day I won big fights, the day I had belts and trophies, suddenly everyone wanted to talk. Everyone had always believed in me. The truth is, most of them didn't even notice I existed before that. And that's how it works with life. The grind is invisible. Your struggle is invisible. You want people to care about you while you're down? They won't. And that's not a reason to be bitter. It's a reason to take full responsibility. You see, the day you stop expecting other people to care is the day you stop being a victim. Victims wait. They wait for someone to help, someone to notice, someone to fix things. Warriors act. They say, "Oh, no one's coming. Fine. I'll do it myself." That's how I built my businesses. That's how I built my businesses. That's how I built my body. That's how I built my life. Everything I have today came from the understanding that if I didn't make it happen, it wouldn't happen. I've seen grown men cry about how unfair life is, cry about how no one supported them. I don't feel sorry for them because I know that crying doesn't pay bills. Complaining doesn't put food on the table. Sitting there feeling sorry for yourself is a choice. And while you're making that choice, someone else is out there making money, making progress, making themselves stronger. When I was at my lowest, I didn't have the luxury of complaining. My rent was due. My fridge was empty. And in those moments, I didn't pray for someone to help me. I became the someone who would help me. I got up earlier. I worked harder. I took every opportunity I could find, no matter how small. I trained my mind to stop thinking about a fair and start thinking about a possible. And you can do the same, but it starts with this. Stop waiting for people to care. Stop expecting sympathy. Stop believing that your problems are special. They're not. Everyone's got problems. The difference is that some people let their problems bury them and others use them as fuel. If you're broke, good, that's fuel. If you're tired, good, that means you've still got work to do. If you're alone, perfect. That means you've got no distractions. Whatever situation you're in, you can either cry about it or you can get up and fight your way out. I chose to fight. I chose to bet on myself, and I chose to stop giving energy to the idea that someone else should care about my life more than I do. That's the day my life changed. Because once you take full control, once you accept that it's all on you, you become unstoppable. So, understand this? Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Work anyway. Motivation is the most useless thing you can rely on. It's a spark that burns out in seconds. People love to say, I'll do it when I feel motivated. That's why they stay average their whole lives, because they're waiting to feel like it. I didn't feel like it. I didn't feel like training most mornings. I didn't feel like working 12 hours a day. I didn't feel like getting punched in the face in the ring, but I did it anyway, because discipline doesn't care how you feel. When I was younger, training as a fighter, there were mornings I'd wake up with my body in pain, my ribs sore from sparring, my hands still swollen from the last fight. Every muscle would scream for rest. And in those moments, I could have easily said, they'll take today off. Brrr. No one would have stopped me, but I knew something. The opponent I'd be facing one day might be training right now while I'm sleeping. And the second I let comfort win, I've already lost. So I dragged myself to the gym. I trained in the cold, in the heat, when I was sick, when I was broke. Discipline was my only weapon, and I used it every single day. Motivation is emotional. Discipline is logical. Motivation is a mood. Discipline is a decision. You can be motivated to start something, but without discipline, you will never finish it. That's why I laugh when people tell me they're trying to get motivated. You're telling me your future, your success, your freedom is all hanging on a feeling. Feelings are weak. Discipline is solid. When I started building my businesses, I wasn't motivated. Every morning. There were days I didn't want to open my laptop. I'd have a headache. I'd be mentally drained. I'd be thinking about 100 other problems in my life, but I still worked. I forced myself to complete tasks even when I didn't want to, because the bills don't care about my feelings. Didn't care about my feeling. My goals don't care about my feelings. The market doesn't care about my feelings. You either produce or you lose. Simple. And let me tell you something. There's power in doing things you don't want to do. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, you're training your mind to obey you, not your emotions. That's the difference between winners and losers. Losers do what's easy. Winners do what's necessary. I remember one winter in London. I was broke, freezing in my apartment because I couldn't afford decent heating. I had two options: sit there in the cold, feeling sorry for myself, or put on my coat, walk to the gym, and train anyway. I went to the gym. And train anyway. I went to the gym. My breath was visible in the air because it was so cold inside, but I trained hard. That session didn't just build my body, it built my mind. It told me, if you can train here, in this cold, hungry, broke state, you can train anywhere, under any condition. And that's what discipline is. It's proving to yourself that your circumstances have no control over you. Most of you wait for perfect conditions to act. You say, I'll start when I have more money. I'll start when I have more energy. I'll start when life calms down. Guess what? Life never calms down. There's always something. And if you keep waiting for the right mood, you'll be waiting until you're dead. Discipline means showing up no matter what. You brush your teeth every day, even when you're tired, right? Why? Because it's non-negotiable. You don't sit there thinking, I need to feel motivated to brush my teeth. You just do it. That's how you have to treat your goals, your training, your work. They're not optional. They're not negotiable. Frito. They are commands, not suggestions. In the fight world, discipline is the difference between champions and punch bags. I've seen incredibly talented fighters fail because they only train when they felt like it. They'd show up late, skip sessions, make excuses. And then they'd lose to less talented fighters who simply outworked them. Talent is nothing without discipline. In business, I've seen people with amazing ideas never make a single dollar because they only worked on their ideas when they were inspired. Inspiration is like the weather. It changes constantly. Discipline is like steel. It stays the same no matter what. I'm not telling you discipline is easy. It's not. Some mornings I'd wake up with that heavy feeling in my chest, thinking. But I'd stand up, force myself into action, and within minutes I'd be moving forward. The resistance you feel is temporary. The regret you feel from quitting is permanent. There's a saying I live by. The man who does what he must, regardless of how he feels, will always beat the man who only works when he feels like it. And that's the truth. And that's the truth. If you can master yourself, if you can make yourself do what's needed without relying on some magical bursts of motivation, you will win in the long run. Because discipline doesn't get tired. Discipline doesn't care if you're sad. Discipline doesn't care if it's raining, if you're broke, if you're heartbroken, if you're sick, it shows up. And if you want to be successful, you have to show up the same way. So stop waiting to feel ready. You'll never be ready. You'll never be ready. Be disciplined instead. Comfort is the biggest scam you've been sold. You've been told your whole life to get comfortable, to find balance, to make things easier. But the truth is, comfort is where your dreams go to die. Every single time in my life when I've grown, when I've leveled up, when I've achieved something worth talking about, it was born out of discomfort, pain, struggle, pressure, never comfort. When I was broke, living in a flat with mold on the walls and barely enough food in the fridge, I was uncomfortable every single day. I hated waking up in that place. I hated knowing I couldn't buy what I wanted. I hated being cold in the winter because heating was too expensive. But that discomfort burned inside me. It was a constant reminder that I had to move. I had to change. I had to work harder. If I'd been comfortable, if the rent was easy, if the fridge was full, I would have sat back, relaxed, and done nothing. Discomfort forced me to fight. Most people don't get that figure. They chase comfort like it's the prize, but it's the trap. Comfort makes you soft. Comfort makes you lazy. It makes you think you've made it when in reality you're slowly rotting away. I've seen guys earn a little bit of money, start feeling comfortable, and within a year, they've lost the edge. They stop pushing, they stop growing, they start making excuses, and before they know it, they're right back where they started, but weaker because they forgot how to struggle. When I was fighting professionally, the most progress I ever made wasn't when I was winning easily. It was when I was training in brutal conditions. I've done sessions where the air was so hot and thick it felt like breathing fire. I've run in the freezing rain until my legs went numb. I've sparred rounds with broken ribs. That wasn't comfortable, but it built me. Every time I pushed past what was comfortable, I came back stronger, physically, mentally, emotionally. Comfort never gave me anything except weakness. The problem with comfort is that it lies to you. It says, relax, you deserve a break. It says, you've done enough. But the truth is, there's no finish line. There's no done. There's no done. The second you slow down, someone else out there is still grinding, still moving, still chasing. And when you meet them, whether in business, in sport, or in life, they will beat you. When I started making money, I made a decision. I would never let comfort kill my drive. That's why I still wake up early, even when I don't have to. That's why I still train like I'm broke, still work like I'm losing. Because the moment I let myself feel safe, I know I'm already slipping. Comfort makes you forget the hunger. It makes you forget the desperation that pushed you to work in the first place. And without that hunger, you're finished to relieve. Although people always say to me, you're lucky you're so disciplined. Luck has nothing to do with it. I've engineered my life, so I stay just uncomfortable enough to keep moving. If I see myself starting to relax too much, I throw myself into a challenge. I'll start a new project. I'll push my body harder. I'll set a goal so big it scares me. I create my own storms because I know calm seas don't make strong sailors. You've got to start seeing discomfort as a gift. That hard workout, that's growth. That difficult conversation, that's growth. That business risk that makes you nervous, that's growth. Every time you step into discomfort, you step into a version of yourself that's sharper, tougher, and more capable. But every time you choose comfort, you choose to stay the same. And staying the same in a world that's constantly moving forward means you're falling behind. You're falling behind. I remember once I had the chance to take an easy route in my career. I just won a big fight. I had offers to fight lower level opponents for easy wins and quick paydays. It would have been comfortable, but I turned it down. I wanted the toughest fights. I wanted to step into the ring against people who could break me. Why? Because those are the fights that force you to evolve. Beating someone you know you can beat teaches you nothing. Struggling against someone better than you teaches you everything. It's the same in life. You want to be richer. It's the same in life. You want to be richer. Put yourself in situations where you have to produce. You want to be fitter? Train when you're tired. You want to be mentally stronger? Face situations that scare you. The easy road leads nowhere. The hard road makes you unstoppable. So if you're comfortable right now, if your life feels safe, understand this, you're in danger. You're in danger of losing your edge, losing your hunger, losing your chance at greatness. And the only way out is to throw yourself back into the fire. Comfort is the enemy. Discomfort is the forge. The forge. Step into the forge on excuses are the easiest currency in the world to spend, and they buy you absolutely nothing. And everyone's got a pocket full of them, ready to throw out at the first sign of difficulty. I'm tired. I don't have time. It's not the right moment. I've heard every excuse in the book, and I've used some of them myself back when I was weak. But here's the truth. Every excuse is just a lie you've polished enough times to believe. And once you start believing your own lies, you're finished. Finished. When I was broke, I could have told myself I didn't have the resources to succeed. I could have said, how am I supposed to win when I don't have the connections, the equipment, the capital? And trust me, those thoughts came into my head, but I realized something. Nobody was going to care about my reasons. The landlord didn't care about my excuses when the rent was due. The bills didn't care. The cold didn't care. Excuses didn't put food in my fridge or heat in my apartment. Action did. Back when I was fighting, I trained with injuries more times than I can count. I've walked into the gym with bruised ribs, with my hands wrapped up from the last fight, with headaches that felt like my skull was splitting. I could have said, I'll rest. I'll take a few days off. I'll heal first. But I knew my opponent wasn't resting. I knew that somewhere out there, a man was training to beat me, and my excuse would be the reason I'd lose. That thought alone killed every justification in my head. Excuses feel good in the moment. They let you relax. They let you relax. They let you tell yourself you're doing the reasonable thing. But what they really do is delay your progress until one day you wake up and you've wasted years convincing yourself you had good reasons for doing nothing. You tell yourself, I can't start a business because the economy is bad. And then the economy improves and you find a new excuse. Bam, the new excuse. He can't train because I'm too tired from work. Then you change jobs and suddenly you're too busy settling in. It never stops until you decide to stop. I remember a winter in London when I had almost no money left. It was freezing and my apartment had no heating. I could barely afford food. I could have sat there and blamed the government, the economy, my upbringing, whatever. I could have told myself it wasn't my fault. And maybe it wasn't my fault how I got there, but it was my responsibility to get out. So I started taking every opportunity I could find. I hustled. I worked through exhaustion. I took jobs I didn't enjoy because I knew each one was a step closer to building the life I wanted. I refused to let myself hide behind the comfort of an excuse. People don't understand how much damage excuses do to their own confidence. Food is... Every time you make an excuse, you teach yourself that you're incapable. You send a message to your brain that says, we don't have control here. We're victims. I've seen guys with worse situations than mine go on to build amazing lives because they refuse to let their disadvantages become their identity. I've also seen guys with every advantage in the world waste it all because they were too busy defending their excuses instead of chasing their goals. It's not about where you start. It's about whether or not you let the story in your head become a cage. In my own life, I've had days where my mind tried to bargain with me. You've worked hard enough today. You can skip this one session. Or you've earned a break. Take it easy. That's how weakness speaks, politely, logically, convincingly. But weakness doesn't care about your future. Weakness cares about comfort right now. I learned to shut it down because every time you win against your excuses, you get stronger. Every time you give in, you get weaker. You need to understand that excuses aren't just in your head. They manifest in your life. The excuse you made yesterday for skipping work is the result you see next month in your bank account. The excuse you made last week for skipping the gym is the result you see next year in the mirror. Every excuse has a cost, and you're the one who pays it. That's why I treat excuses like poison. I don't let them near me. I don't entertain them, and I don't surround myself with people who constantly use them, because excuses are contagious. If you're around people who justify their laziness all day, you'll start doing the same. Sure, if you're around people who find a way to win no matter what, you'll start thinking like them. The truth is simple. You can have excuses or you can have results, but you can't have both. Everyone wants the big win. the life-changing transformation, the overnight success story. But that's not how it works. You don't go from zero to king in a day. You don't flip a switch and suddenly have the body, the money, the respect, the life you dream about. It's small wins stacked on top of each other until one day the pile is so high people think you came out of nowhere. They don't see the years of building. They only see the finished tower. When I was broke, I didn't wake up and think, today I'm going to be rich by midnight. That's a fantasy. I woke up and thought, today I'll make more than I did yesterday. Today I'll get one step closer. And some days that step was tiny, making a small sale, learning a new skill, training my body a little harder than before. But I kept stacking. Those small wins started to snowball, and eventually the momentum became unstoppable. The problem with most people is they're obsessed with the end result, but not the process. They want to see 100 pounds come off the scale in a month, but they can't even commit to eating clean for a week. They want 10,000 in the bank, but they won't even save their first 100. I've learned that if you can't handle the small wins, you'll never get the big ones. Because the big wins are just the sum of all the small ones you didn't skip. When I was fighting, it wasn't a single championship fight that made me a champion. It was every miserable, sweaty, exhausting training session before it. It was the mornings I ran when I didn't want to. It was the sparring rounds when I was tired and my lungs felt like they were burning. It was the discipline to win each day, even in tiny ways, that made the big victories possible. There was a period in my life where every day felt like a grind with no visible payoff. I was working long hours, training hard, and nothing dramatic seemed to be happening. That's the hardest part. When you're putting in work and the results are still invisible, most people quit in that phase. They think, this isn't working. I should be further ahead by now. But that's when you have to trust the process. You have to keep stacking those small wins because eventually they'll hit a tipping point. It's like pushing a heavy flywheel. At first, every push feels like it's going nowhere. You're sweating, straining, barely moving it an inch, but you keep pushing. You push every day, and slowly it starts to turn. Then it moves faster. Then one day it's spinning so quickly you can barely keep up. That's momentum, and momentum is the most powerful force in success. Once it's moving, it works for you. But you can only get there by showing up every single day, winning in small ways, and refusing to quit when it feels slow. I've used this same principle in business. My first ventures weren't huge successes. In fact, they barely made anything at the start. But each day I worked on them, improved them, learned more about the market, made small deals, and built relationships. One good connection led to another. One sale turned into two into 10. And before I knew it, the thing that started as almost nothing was paying my bills. Then it was paying for my freedom. That's the power of small wins. The best part is, small wins also build your confidence. Every time you complete a task, every time you follow through on a promise to yourself, you start to believe in your own ability to get things done. And that belief is everything. When you know you can rely on yourself, nothing can stop you. But if you constantly break promises to yourself, if you keep skipping the small wins, you teach yourself that you're unreliable. That's how people lose before they even start. When I look back, the hardest days weren't the ones where I was failing. They were the days where I had to fight just to take one more small step. I remember sitting in my freezing apartment, working late at night on a business that was barely making enough to keep the lights on. It would have been easy to quit and tell myself it wasn't worth it. But I told myself, a win today. Do one thing today that moves you forward. And I did, day after day. Eventually, those wins stacked up into a life people now think happened overnight. Happened overnight. You don't need to conquer the world today. You need to win the morning. You need to win the workout. You need to win the conversation that could lead to a new opportunity. Stack enough of those and the big wins will take care of themselves. Small wins create big momentum, and momentum creates the life you want. Yodel. One of the biggest lies you've been told is that you have time. You walk around like there's some invisible clock counting down decades for you, like you can waste months, even years, and somehow it won't matter because there's always tomorrow. That's the most dangerous mindset in the world. Tomorrow is a maybe. Today is all you've got, and every second you let slip is gone forever. You can make money back. You can rebuild a business. You can recover from a loss, but you can't get back a single second that's passed. I learned this the hard way. When I was younger, I thought I had time to get serious later. I'd train, but I'd tell myself I could always push harder next week. I'd work on my business ideas, but I'd also waste days on meaningless distractions. And then something happened. I started losing fights I should have won. Not because I wasn't talented, but because I'd let small amounts of wasted time pile up until my edge was gone. In that moment, I realized time wasn't some endless supply I could just tap into when I felt like it. It was draining every day, whether I used it well or not. There were times in my life where I was broke, freezing in winter with no heating, eating cheap food because it was all I could afford. If I had wasted those days scrolling, sleeping late, or complaining, I'd still be in that situation right now. I didn't have the luxury of time to have figured things out slowly. I had to act like every day was life or death, because in a way it was. The rent was due. My future was on the line. My pride was on the line. And when you treat time like it's scarce, you start moving differently. Most people don't move because they think they've got years to fix their life. They think they can relax now and get serious later, but later never comes. You blink and a year is gone. You keep blinking and a decade is gone. Then you wake up one day in a body you've neglected, in a job you hate, with dreams you never touched, and suddenly you wish you had started when you first thought about it. But by then, the clock has taken so much from you that you're starting with less energy, less health, fewer opportunities. When I started building my businesses, I operated like I was running out of time because I was. I'd wake up early, work until my eyes hurt, train until my body was ready to collapse, then work again. I didn't care if I was tired. I didn't care if other people thought I was too obsessed. I knew that if I wasted even one day, that was one day I'd never get back. And that day could have been the one that moved me forward. That's the thing about progress. You never know which action will be the breakthrough, so you can't afford to skip any. Time is the most ruthless enemy you have because it never stops attacking. It doesn't pause when you're lazy. It doesn't wait for you to be ready. It doesn't slow down when you're struggling. It just keeps taking. And if you're not taking back from it by using every hour, it's beating you. Every day you wake up is a debt you owe to yourself to use it well. I remember hearing people say, I'll start next month. And I think, what makes you so sure you'll even have next month? Life is unpredictable. You could lose your job, your health, your chances, and suddenly the time you thought you had is gone. That's why I act with urgency. Not fear, urgency. Not fear, urgency. Fear paralyzes you. Urgency makes you move. It forces you to cut out the nonsense, stop overthinking, and start doing. Some people think urgency is stressful, but I'll tell you what's really stressful. Waking up years later and realizing you've wasted your potential. Regret is heavier than any workload. I'd rather be tired now than broken later. That's why even on days when I don't feel like it, I still move forward. I still work. I still train. I still build. Because I know the clock doesn't care about my feelings, and if I don't take my life seriously now, it's only going to get harder. If you want to win, you have to start acting like your time is running out. Because it is. I live every day like I'm out of time. And that's why I get more done in a year than most people do in 5. It's not talent. It's not luck. It's not luck. It's urgency. You can pretend you've got forever, or you can get up today and move like this is your only shot. You've been given one life and the clock is already ticking. So either get up and take what's yours or sit there and watch someone else live the life you were too lazy to fight for.